Hey everyone, Christina Semmens would say yes to holiness here, and I am back. Happy New Year. It is 2025. In the wake of my husband Paul's passing back in November, Veterans Day, in fact, I took a little bit of a break. I jumped on a couple of times to kind of do a little bit of processing and touch base with everybody. And thank you to everyone out there who has sent your condolences, who have been praying for myself and our family. And I can't express my gratitude enough. But we are beginning a new year and we're starting anew. For me, that's going to be a lot of different things. And in the process, have an opportunity to be able to start anew. Uh, it can be scary, and I know that is a big thing for people at the beginning of a year. You're like looking at, okay, I've got this whole new year in front of me. What am I going to do with it? And that can be overwhelming. That can be frightening. But I'm here to tell you that Pope Francis, we began a Jubilee year again. 2025, traditionally, the church every 25 years does a Jubilee year. We had an extraordinary Jubilee year back in 2016, which was the year of mercy, but we have a regular Jubilee year right now. And Pope Francis has titled it a year of hope. And I think we need so much hope, don't we? But hope does not disappoint. And that's a part of the theme. Jesus does not disappoint. And although for me on a personal level, I am, struggling, wrestling with the changes that are, naturally a part of my life, not having my husband, of 28 years around anymore. But into that change, when we invite our Lord in, we have the opportunity to be transformed and to live our lives in such a way that people are able to see the light of Christ, which is Merry Christmas. We're still in the middle of the Christmas season today, actually, as I'm recording this live. It's the feast of Mary, the Solemnity of God, of the Mother of God, and that is one of her, titles that we give her. I would argue, as many saints and those a lot smarter than me have, that this is the feast day for us to really recognize Mary as the mother of our God, not because she was extraordinary, but because God created her so that she could be extraordinary. And that's the thing, that's the message that I want us to think about today as I share some food for the head, heart, hands, and feet. And that is that God has created us to be extraordinary as well. Each of us has been created to be extraordinary people, to be extraordinary um, ambassadors of God's love in the world by being his feet and his hands, to being his presence. So when others aren't able to see him, for us to be him, to be Jesus to others. So as we're kind of looking at things, remembering that our lives are not our own, that God's plans for us are always good though, and that's what our world wants to tell us, is that God is a dictator. He doesn't love you. He just wants his thing, not what's best for us. And that's untrue. Those are all lies. That's all Satan. So as we begin, let's remember that whatever resolutions we might be beginning today, that our resolutions have one thing in common, and that we're trying to control some part of our lives, aren't we? But God is in control. And that is what we can rejoice in, because hope does not disappoint. So, whatever hope you have right now for what this new year may come, God will respond to that hope. Maybe He's not going to answer in the way that you expect. I'm pretty sure He's not going to answer in the way that I might be expecting or hoping, but when we walk with Him, he will help us be able to gain his perspective and see him working in all things. So let us begin with our food for the head. It comes from Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, and he writes, "Only if people change will the world change. And in order to change, people need the light that comes from God, the light which so unexpectedly, on the night of Christmas, entered into our night." I think the key here is the fact that so often we look around at the world and we go, "Oh, the world is such a mess." Why don't the politicians? Why doesn't Congress do this? Or, we point to other people rather than to ourselves. If we want the world to change, we need to change. And the only way that we can change, as Pope Benedict points out, is from God. We need the light that comes from God. God is the only one that can truly change us, transform us, so that we can be the light that others need. And it came, that light that we needed. God sent it. God sent his only son. Why? Because he loved us. And so the biggest thing is that, when on a physical plane, Pope Benedict really modeled for us how we can dramatically change. Case in point, he was the Pope. In the worldly view, he's at the pinnacle of what becoming a priest and then a bishop and a cardinal, and you become Pope. You're the top dog, right? Well, the fact is that he realized that the world needed somebody different. He realized that God wanted him to change. And so he did. He resigned from being Pope and he became virtually a hermit. And he quietly prayed and went about the task that God gave him for the last decade of his life. Absolutely amazing. He said no to what the world would think God wanted of him, to be Pope, and rather he became who God was calling him to be. We have to be willing to change too. Not for the resolution that we want necessarily. You know, I want to lose weight, okay? I mean, very common at the beginning of the year. But it was something that, because my weight had gone up so much, that my husband, before he passed, he was very concerned about my health. And he's like, I really want you to, be losing weight. So I began doing that back in September and making progress. But the fact is still, still a journey. It took me over a decade to put on the weight, and it will take me, excuse me, it will take me some time to take it off. But the fact is that that's a very common resolution, right? But the reasoning for our change needs to be so that God can use us more effectively. And that was the conversation my husband and I had, which was, you know, he knew that he was going to be leaving and that I needed to be here for my mom and for our youngest son because I'm all they got right now. So it's on me to do everything I can to stay healthy and to be here for them, to be able to care for them, to be able to be God's light for them. So, in case you haven't already noticed, I'm fighting something. That was part of why I didn't jump on yesterday. I didn't really have a voice. So, my apologies kind of for the hoarseness. But anyway, so the fact is, though, is that we need to be willing to change. We need to be willing to let go and let God, as is a very common, phrase that people use. But what I am hoping for is that when we change, then our focus isn't about so that we get something out of it, but so that our change brings about good for others. And if we understand what Pope Benedict wrote here, only if people change will the world change. That if we truly want 2025 to be different in this world, then we need to make the changes in our lives that are going to help the light of Christ, the light of God, shine forth in the world even brighter in the unexpected ways that God desires in our places, wherever He has placed us. When our light, His light, shines through us, then the world does change. Our food for the heart comes from Saint Benedict. He tells us, whenever you begin any good work, you should first of all make a pressing appeal to Christ our Lord to bring it to perfection. So, whatever your resolutions are, whatever your resolution is, whatever it is, bring it to our Lord. Bring it to our Lord. I'm hoping that as you were making these resolutions, that you were discerning with our Lord. You were saying, Lord, what areas of my life do you want me to change? I was talking about losing weight. Well, especially in light of, my husband's passing, I need to be very particular about caring for my health, and have been doing those things that are necessary. But the fact is that I discern that. That was a part of my discernment. Our Lord uses other people in your life in order to point out the things that you know, but you might not necessarily be willing to address. So, what are some things that people have talked to you about? Maybe over the course of the holidays, you found yourself getting short tempered and impatient, with those around you. Maybe you need to be working on some patience. Maybe you need to be working on letting go of your frustration with all things politics, for example. Maybe you need to reduce the amount of time that you're watching, news at night. Maybe it's something that is, maybe it's hidden from other people. Maybe you're struggling with alcoholism, or maybe it's pornography, or maybe it's something else that, excuse me again, maybe it's something else that people wouldn't necessarily know about because it's kind of hidden. Whatever it is that you're feeling the Lord is putting upon you, any project or good work, bring it before our Lord. Say, Lord, help me. Help me be able to do all things in union with you, in you, and through you. Saint Benedict, his rule of Saint Benedict has two pillars. It's prayer and labor. So ora et labora is the Latin for that. Prayer and labor. And Benedict knew that if he was going to set about any project or good work, as all the saints intuitively know, then he first had to call down the blessings of heaven. This is what he's talking about when he says we have to make a pressing appeal to Christ our Lord to bring it to perfection. And this is what we have to do with any resolutions that we might have in mind. So come before our Lord. In fact, I would say, if you have the opportunity today, because today is a holy day of obligation for those of you who have not already gone. I went last night. I'm so sorry. Of course, when I'm talking, I'm going to have to cough. But the fact is that went last night. I discovered a beautiful, practice of doing adoration and mass on New Year's Eve in order to bring in the new year properly, and had the opportunity to do that last night. And so, but for those of you out there who did not get to mass yet, when you go to mass today, ask for the blessings of our Lord. Ask for the blessings of heaven to come down upon your efforts so that they can be brought to perfection. And in the process, then we can bring about the world's perfecting, not by our efforts. No, it's by God's. But through us, He can bring about the changing of the world that we so desire to see. Our food for the hands comes from St. Francis de Sales. He says, have patience with all things, but chiefly have patience with yourself. Do not lose courage in considering your own imperfections, but instantly set about remedying them every day. Begin the task anew. This is how we need to approach our resolutions. We need to have patience, but chiefly patience with ourselves. We need to be patient and not lose courage or lose hope as we're trying to set about trying to rectify those imperfections that we know we all have. We have to set every day, we have to begin the task anew. Just as St. Francis de Sales tells us. All of our resolutions that we make, I would argue, are good. I don't think we would make them if they were not good. So the question, though, is how do we not fall into those, back into the old habits? Well, Atomic Habits, and I recommend it for everybody out there, um, is a phenomenal book. And it's something that the biggest thing in it is that it teaches us very simply that everything comes with little bitty steps, tiny little steps. So, if you're not familiar, Atomic Habits by James Clear. So the biggest thing is that he starts out with a great analogy of how Britain became the greatest cycling nation for over a decade by implementing a very, very simple little, practice, which was 1%, 1% better. Looking for 1% differences. Think about this. If you improve at anything by 1% each and every day, where are you going to be at the end of the year? 365% better, right? That's a threefold improvement. Okay. But so often we're looking for the threefold improvement from the get go. That's not how it works. So, what we do is that, we try to do the one thing. This is the whole purpose of a daily resolution. Okay. So, if you're trying to, um, you know, rectify your weight, okay, you're trying to reduce your weight, what do? Well, you cut out the one cookie. And you're going, Christina, how is that going? That's not going to help me lose weight. Yes, it does. Over time, if you cut out the one cookie, extra cookie that you were having. So, for example, say after dinner you grab 2 cookies. You only have 1 cookie. How much are the calories over the course of the year? Okay. So we have to look at our lives that way, not just with our weight, not just with, anything, that we might be, trying to change, but rather to do one thing. So, like, for example, if you have lost touch with someone, and during this Jubilee year, remember that this is a year for extending forgiveness. This is a year for repairing relationships. This is the year to do these things. So, say you've lost touch of, with an old friend. There was some stupid falling out, or it could have been a big falling out. This is the year to reach out to that person. So, it might be going, I don't want to have that big conversation. Well, instead, just reach out and send a text. Happy New Year. You came across my mind. Happy New Year. There is no risk in that. There is no risk. It's sending a text to somebody. They respond or they don't. If they respond, great. You don't have to do anything else, but you established a contact. You are laying the foundation, the groundwork for the possible opportunity to have that conversation, to sit down to have reconciliation. This is how we need to look at our lives. Every day we need to begin our task anew. We need to be patient. We need to have hope, knowing that hope does not disappoint. Do not lose courage. Know that our Lord is always with us. And as we make a daily resolution to do one thing, in order to become more fully the person that God created us to be, do that one thing, that 1% better, and see what the end of 2025 looks like for you. Our food for the feet comes from St. Gemma Galgani. During this new year, I resolve to begin a new life. I do not know what will happen to me during the year, but I abandon myself entirely to you, my God, and my aspirations and all my affections will be for you. I feel so weak, dear Jesus, but with your help, I hope and resolve to live a different life. That is, a life closer to you. I would say that this is a perfect prayer for us to begin 2025 with. For us to resolve to begin a new life. We don't know what's going to happen during the year ahead. I know I don't know what's going to happen during this next year ahead. Don't know what opportunities are going to come. Don't know what challenges are going to come. But I'm going to abandon myself entirely to God. So all my aspirations and my affections will be directed towards Him. But I feel so weak in being able to do this because I need His help. I've resolved to live a different life, and that's a life that's closer to Him. I hope and pray for each of you out there that might be listening right now or is going to listen later, that you resolve to begin a new life. And that new life is simply a life closer to God, a life in which, regardless of what happens, you're able to abandon yourself entirely to Him. That your aspirations and all of your affections, all of your joys, your sorrows, all is given and pointed towards Him. And that you recognize that if you turn to Him with His help, He will help you be able to live an extraordinary life. A life that Mary had no idea was going to happen to her when the angel Gabriel came to her and said, "Blessed are you among women." May we too have the blessing of being able to become extraordinary by saying yes, but put first things first. Put God first and know and hope that He will do all things to help you do just that, to become the extraordinary saint that you are created to be. Continue to do all things in union with Him. St. Augustine said, "You aspire to great things, so begin with little ones." Know of my prayers for each of you during this upcoming year. And I look forward to the journey and what it might hold for all of us, including the possibility of a pilgrimage together. But more on that in the weeks to come. God bless. And may we all continue to do whatever it takes so that together we can tell the Master of Death, not today. God bless everybody, and Happy New Year.